So who is the great Spencer Lee? If you're trying to find out more about Spencer Lee, this is going to be a great video for you. And even if you know a lot about Spencer Lee, maybe you're going to learn something along the way about the U.S. Olympian at 57 kilograms men's freestyle. Now, that is the lightest weight division for Olympic wrestling. 57 kilograms is 125 and a half pounds. And Spencer Lee has been a dominator at this weight class for a long time. And going back, and if you had asked people in 2010, when Spencer was a youth wrestler in Pennsylvania, and you told them, hey, Spencer Lee's going to be wrestling in the Olympics in 2024, pretty much anyone who knew him or was around him or saw him wrestle would say, yeah, that makes sense. That's absolutely what we expect. And if you had asked people 2 or 3 years ago, and they said, hey, Spencer Lee's wrestling in the Olympics, you'd say, whoa, really? It would be a surprise. And that's a kind of a sort of a picture of the career and the ups and downs that Spencer Lee has had in his career. And we'll get into it all. But he started out as a youth wrestler in Pennsylvania. And if you don't know, Pennsylvania is the hub for wrestling in America. It is where a lot of the talent comes from. There is no question that Pennsylvania is the #1 state in America for wrestling. There's no doubt, there's no denying, there's not even a debate. It's who's second, third, fourth, because #1's Pennsylvania. And even if you're from Iowa or New Jersey or Ohio, they even would acknowledge, yeah, that's the best state for wrestling. It's like for football, there's Texas and Florida, but there's no debate in this scenario. It's just Pennsylvania. And he grew up in a town called Sagertown, Pennsylvania, which is just north of Meadville, northwest Pennsylvania, not too far from Erie either. And that's where he kind of first became a name for himself. And that was as a youth wrestler, which a youth wrestler making a name for himself. There's not many of those. There's not many people who achieve kind of a legendary status in the sport as, elementary and middle schooler. But Spencer Lee did. So much so that it was actually news when Spencer Lee moved from Sagertown, Pennsylvania, down to Murraysville, which is outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, for high school, where he wrestled at Franklin Regional. Now, you do this for a couple reasons. One, he got proximity to the #1 wrestling club in America, Young Guns Wrestling Club, who's coached by Coach Jody Stripmatter. And that was a place that had multiple national champions. You had Nico Megaludis, you had Vincenzo Joseph, Jason Nolf, Spencer Lee, and others, all at this club. And at this high school, Franklin Regional, you had Spencer. Nico Megaludis was a previous alum. You had Josh Shields, Josh Maruka, and Michael Kimmer. So he got to join a really tough high school team. He got proximity to one of the best clubs in the club scene in wrestling. That's a big part of a wrestler's development. And so the legend of his Pennsylvania career really started in high school in Murraysville, Pennsylvania, Franklin Regional. And he was a stud from day one. He won states as a freshman, a sophomore, and a junior. We'll get to what happened senior year, but he's winning pretty much everything there is. He wins Pennsylvania. He wins Super 32. He's making world teams. On and on and on it goes. And he's just a wrecking crew. And one thing with Spencer Lee is he doesn't just win matches. When he gets a takedown, everyone is talking about how great he is from the top position. His ability to turn guys to their back. That is the one thing that stands out about Spencer Lee. One of the many things that stands out about Spencer Lee. He gets on top of guys, he turns them over, he either pins them or the match is stopped. 2013, he makes his first world team, a cadet world team, which is 17 and under. He goes to the World Championships, doesn't come home with a medal. Then in 2014, he makes the team again. This time he comes back with a gold medal in 2014, is the world champion, a huge achievement. And if you talk to Spencer Lee during these years, he's winning a lot of folk style, which is the American style of wrestling in high school and college. But freestyle, the Olympic style, that's where Spencer's real passion is. That's what he's most excited about. He wants to be a world and Olympic champion.
My goal is to be a 4-time undefeated state champion, state of Pennsylvania. I want to win a world title, maybe one day, hopefully. This is my biggest goal, is to win, obviously, the Olympic title, and NCAA and college and everything.
So him winning a world title is really significant to him and his development, his confidence that he can be an Olympic champion someday. He eventually, in 2016, would make a huge decision, really a landscape shifting decision, to go to Iowa.
Why don't you take the time and Announce where you're gonna be wrestling.
For me, I decided to choose to be go to the University of Iowa. I'm going to be a Hawkeye.
Now, everyone thought, including the Lee family themselves, including Spencer himself, it was just assumed by everyone that he was going to go to Penn State, and that makes a ton of sense as well. Penn State is the dominant program in collegiate wrestling. He's from Pennsylvania. It would be close to home. For all the reasons, Penn State made sense, but he went against the grain. He decided to go to Iowa. I actually got to be there for that announcement. I drove up. I lived in Virginia at the time. I got to go to his home and interview Spencer and get his reasons why he decided to go against the grain and commit to wrestle at Iowa. And he had a lot of reasons for that, but wrestling for Coach Tom and Terry Brands were the main reasons. He wanted to restore Iowa back to the top. So afterwards, Spencer started to deal with a little bit of injury. He had some injuries that sidelined him for brief periods of time. I believe a shoulder injury, but then it was his senior year. He's already a 3-time Pennsylvania state champion. I've already told you what Pennsylvania is. You know what it means to be an elite wrestler from Pennsylvania. You're the best of the best. And winning 4 PA state championships is truly rarefied air, legendary status. Many legends have come out of Pennsylvania without 4 Pennsylvania titles. And that's what Spencer is trying to do. And everything's going according to plan. He wins Ironman. He's on the right track. Ironman being one of the toughest high school tournaments in the country, along with Super 32. And then in January, 2 months before the state tournament, in a practice, Spencer Lee tears his ACL. And you maybe know this story, maybe you don't. But he tears it in practice, and then there's a ton of questions for Spencer to answer. Does he continue to train and try to win his 4th Pennsylvania state title, or does he shut it down, try to get healthy and get ready for college? And there was a lot of debate back and forth, and I think, I don't think he was ever conflicted, but I think he was getting some, advice that, hey, we should be a little cautious here, not try it. Spencer Lee said, no, I'm going for it, I'm going to try. And he wrestles in the state tournament. He's able to qualify. And then he wins all his matches up to the state finals. And then he's got an opponent, Austin DeSanto, someone who he would become down the line best friends with. But Austin DeSanto was on a vision quest, and we actually did a film about this match and this meeting between these two. Because Austin, the year prior, had been teched by Spencer Lee in the state finals, and Austin said in his mind, I want to go and I want to beat Spencer Lee. And so he goes the same way to Spencer. They make the state finals, and at the last second, Austin gets a takedown to win that match and become a state champion, denying Spencer Lee his 4th Pennsylvania state title. So then Spencer goes off to college. He goes to Iowa, where year 1, he is wrestling. It's very common, especially for Iowa, but for most schools, most big-time recruits, at this time, you would redshirt. You would get a year in the room, you would practice, train, develop, and then the next year, you'll be ready to wrestle a varsity season. Spencer Lee said, no, I don't want a redshirt. I want to go right away. He did not get knee surgery of any kind, so he's still wrestling with a torn ACL. Has a great season. He goes on, he wins an NCAA title as a true freshman, beating another stud from Rutgers, Nick Soriano. This was a really loaded weight class. It had a national champion, Nathan Tomasello, in there. It had another national champion, Darian Cruz, in there. So Spencer's sophomore year at NCAAs, he's having another great season. He's taken some losses along the way, but at the NCAA tournament, Spencer Lee always shows up. He makes it to the finals. He's wrestling UVA's Jack Mueller. And in this match, he tears his ACL again, the same one he had torn previously. He got surgery after the state championship match where he wrestled with a torn ACL, got corrective surgery, and it just tore again the exact same knee. And so at this point, he goes back and they talk about what they're going to do, and they decide, nope, no surgery. Spencer's able to wrestle without this ACL because he has one good knee. Things are cruising along, and so they decide to just forego any surgery and just try to deal with it. And that was in 2019. And then we go into 2020, and Spencer's maybe having his best, most dominant year. This is the year that Spencer has been eyeing for years. This is his first real crack at making an Olympic team. He wrestles at senior nationals. He dominates through there. He beats a now world champion, Vito Arujau. He beats Nathan Tomasello. He beats national champion Darren Cruz. Beats all of these really tough guys to become the senior national champion and really get on the short list of guys who could make the Olympic team. Then he wrestles the rest of his NCAA folk style season. He dominates his way through Big Tens, and then
we are having an emergency FRL. The NCAA tournament is done.
As we all know, the world shut down March of 2020, right 2 weeks, actually a week before he would have won his third NCAA title. The world stops, shut down, and Spencer Lee and the rest of the wrestling world just sits around and waits and waits and waits. And they have to wait till 2021 before they could wrestle again. And it was a shortened season. Spencer Lee's wrestling. He's dominating just as he had before. He's in quest for his third NCAA title. And in the Big Ten finals, he tears his ACL, his other ACL. That's right. Now Spencer Lee has no ACLs in his knees, and he's a Big Ten champion going into NCAAs. And what is interesting about this, and we mentioned he made the choice to go to Iowa. Well, one of his goals was to bring Iowa back on top. Not only that he would have his own individual success, but he would bring Iowa back to the top. And this was the year where Iowa can beat Penn State and bring home an NCAA title. So Spencer Lee is once again faced with a choice. Hey, do you wrestle or not wrestle? And I think you know how this goes. Spencer Lee decides to wrestle. Not only does he wrestle this time, but unlike his senior year at Pennsylvania State, he wins. He wins NCAAs with no ACLs. He does a viral interview with ESPN afterwards where he reveals he's been wrestling this tournament with no ACLs and that no excuses. Excuses are for wusses. That's his big tagline after this. And he becomes a 3-time NCAA champion in the most dramatic and fashion maybe we've ever seen. So then he's going into his senior year, and he once again is faced with a decision, surgery, no surgery, because after his first ACL tear in high school, he got surgery and then immediately retore. And so he's like, I don't want to go through that again. And so now he's got this other knee that's torn, and he's once again wondering, should I or should I not get surgery? Well, he decides not to initially, and he tries to come back, and he's not quite the same. So then they shut it down, and he ends up getting that surgery that he needed and getting that fixed and coming back. And one thing I didn't mention is that Spencer Lee in 2021, after he won NCAAs, he was so limited by the injury, he was not even able to compete for the Olympic trials. So this huge dream that he's had, and in 2020, he was healthy and ready to rock. 2021, he tears his other ACL. He's not able to wrestle for that Olympic team spot. So that dream is put on the shelf for 3 years. So then in 2022, he tries to come back. He can't come back. He ends up redshirting, taking a year to recover. He gets surgery, comes back. He comes back in the 22-23 season. He makes it to the NCAA semifinals, and he falls to Purdue's Matt Ramos and ends up not wrestling back. So his quest for a third NCAA title, he falls short. And he looked a little limited, and he's never really elaborated on the health and injury status of that tournament. He still kept it kind of vague. But we know, putting pieces together, he wasn't fully healthy for that tournament when he lost to Matt Ramos. So that's it. He's not a 4-time NCAA champion. And then he tries to wrestle freestyle in 2023, and he wrestled the U.S. Open. And then some things went haywire there, and he has to forfeit out of that tournament. And at this point, you're like, is Spencer Lee ever going to be right again? I mean, he's battled these injuries. All of them have been talking about this ACL, that ACL, surgery, no surgery, surgery. I mean, that was the story for Spencer Lee from really 2019 up until 2023. It's like, is he ever going to be fully healthy and able to do this? And so after the 2023 U.S. Open, it was kind of like, maybe it's over. And you never want to say for sure, but the fact that he couldn't get healthy and finish a tournament, his last 2 tournaments, you did wonder that. Then he takes time passes, and then he starts to enter some of these tournaments. He enters senior nationals, he enters the Bill Farrell, wins, and now you're starting to think, okay, maybe Spencer Lee is a contender to make this Olympic team after all. For years, you're like, he'll never be healthy enough to do it. Everyone knows that he has the ability, he has the skills, but is his body ever going to cooperate enough to match up with his skills and get him on this team? And so then he starts entering these tournaments, and he wins. Then he wins another tournament. And then he goes to the Olympic trials, and all eyes are on Spencer Lee. This is his opportunity. And he has to beat a lot of good guys. He has to beat the reigning world team member, Zane Richards. He beats and dominates him. He beats and dominates his former teammate, Nico Megaludis. And it sets up the 2 out of 3 with Thomas Gilman, who is the best lightweight of a generation for Team USA. He's a world champion, Olympic medalist, multiple world medalists, multiple world teams. And also, they used to be training partners at the University of Iowa. Gilman and Spencer had trained together for years. And then Thomas made the move from Iowa to Penn State, joining really the arch nemesis of the Iowa program. And so everyone had been waiting and hoping to see these two meet. And because Thomas had been there since 2020, but they had never wrestled. They'd never seen each other. And now we finally get to see it. And Spencer takes out Thomas in 2 straight matches to make the Olympic team. But, so you say, great, he's wrestling at the Olympics. No, because this weight was not yet qualified. This spot, even though you can make the team for Team USA, that does not mean necessarily that you get to wrestle at the Olympics. So then he had to go to Budapest and wrestle in the Olympic Games qualifier. He had to go and wrestle in the Olympic Games qualifier. And he had to beat a bunch of guys, but he does it. He goes, he has a crazy match against China, back and forth match. He hits a comeback, takedown, turn, and he ends up making it. And he dominates the last 2 guys, and boom, Spencer Lee is an Olympian. And now he is on the short list. Now that he's run that gauntlet, it seems like years worth of gauntlet, not just the trials and the qualifier, but man, from the injuries and coming back and getting healthy and getting on the team, on and on. It's really been a lot for Spencer to get here, but now he's here and he's healthy. He's wrestling better than he ever has. And how about this stat? Now, I'll give a caveat that Spencer Lee's limited in the number of freestyle matches he's wrestled in his senior level career. But in his career, he has never lost. He is an undefeated senior level wrestler. No one has ever beaten this man, okay? That matters. No one in America has beaten him. He's had multiple overseas tournaments now. No one's beaten him. And also, he has a little bit of an unfamiliarity with a lot of the world scene. They've never wrestled him, and that familiarity can really help shape a lot of strategies. And now he's an unknown, and people are not going to know what hit him. Because when this guy gets takedowns, he gets turns until the match is over. He is a knockout artist like wrestling doesn't really have. He's the best. I think he's the best parterre, which is like the top position in freestyle wrestling. I think he's the best parterre wrestler in the world right now. No one has his ability to turn. So he's going to be someone that everyone is wanting to watch at the Paris Olympic Games, 57 kilograms. It's a loaded weight class with a lot of really good wrestlers. But Spencer Lee, it feels like everything has been building to this moment, the moment where Spencer Lee becomes an Olympic champion. And if nothing else, you just hope, whether you're an American fan or an international wrestling fan or not a fan of Spencer Lee, you got to root that he gets one healthy crack at this opportunity, because I think it could be spectacular. And I think there's a lot of wrestling fans that are most excited about the 57 kilogram weight division because they want to watch the great Spencer Lee.